afternoon, respected teacher, judges, and my dear colleagues. Today I am here to present the paper, Variations of Melatonin Level with BMI and OSA Risks Among Medical Students Against General Public During COVID-19 Pandemic. The global COVID-19 pandemic has established a new norms in our society. Since its emergence in December 2019, people underwent periods of movement restriction, lockdowns, and unlock phases. Sedentary lifestyle abound, clogged with high level of uncertainties and stress, which become the fertile grounds for increased BMI, risks of OSA, and increased associated morbidity and mortality. Presence of OSA signifies a poor disturbed sleep, and sleep, however, is an essential physiological function. According to the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, a minimum of at least 7 to 8 hours is required for optimal health in adults. Duration of sleep is directly correlated with melatonin secretion, melatonin, which is a key regulator of sleep itself. The objectives are to determine the BMI and OSA risks among medical students and general public in Manipur during COVID-19 pandemic, and to estimate their serum melatonin levels, to correlate the BMI and OSA risks with serum melatonin level among the study groups. It is a comparative cross-sectional study done in our department, RIMS, Imphal. The study duration is November 2020 to March 2022, and study population include all the first-year medical students in RIMS and age and gender matched general public residing during the pandemic in Manipur. Convenient sampling was done and written informed consent was taken. These are my inclusion and exclusion criteria. The study tools include BMI, obstructive sleep apnea score, which is a standard questionnaire, and the melatonin assay. Data were analyzed using mean, standard deviation, and percentages. Scatter diagram and study details were used. Ethical approval was taken from REB RIMS. Coming to the results, a total of 122 took part in the study, and 42 general population and IT medical students took part in the study. The mean age of the general population was 21.5 years, and the medical student was 20.2 years. BMI was comparable in both the genders and in both the groups. The normal BMI is seen in more than half of the participants in both the groups, but 9.52% of the general population and 17.5% of the medical students were underweight. However, the 26.1% of the general population and 10% of the medical students were overweight. The mean melatonin level of the participants are, in general population, is 87.51 picogram per ml, and medical student was 104.5 picogram ml. And based on the gender, female has more higher melatonin level. 4.6% of the general population and 3.8% of the medical student has a neck circumference above 40 centimeter. 4.8% of the general population and 1.2% of the medical student has a high risk of OSA. And this scatter diagram shows the correlation of BMI and OSA risks. Medical students shows a positive correlation between OSA and BMI, while in general population, there is a stronger positive correlation between OSA and BMI as compared to the medical students. This scatter diagram shows the serum melatonin level and OSA risks. In medical students, there is a negative correlation between the serum melatonin level and OSA score. However, in general population, when we found that higher the serum melatonin level in high scorer of the OSA risks. There is a correlation between OSA risks and melatonin. In the general population, it was found as statistically significant, and those in medical students, it was not statistically significant. This scatter diagram shows a correlation of BMI and serum melatonin level. In medical students, there is no correlation between BMI and serum melatonin level, while in general population, there is a slight positive or weak correlation between BMI and serum melatonin level. Coming to the discussion, normal BMI was seen in more than half of the participants, which is comparable to the study conducted by Rasiki et al. And underweight medical students were twice that of the general population, and general population were 2.5 times more as compared to the overweight medical students during the pandemic. BMI was comparable in both the genders, in both the groups. In general population, OSA risk was 4.7, which is similar to the study conducted by Costa MP and lower to the study conducted by Reddy AB, where the OSA risk was 9.3%. In medical student, OSA risk was 3.7%, which is lower to the study conducted by Chen X et al., and which is higher in the study conducted by the Yasin et al., and OSA risk was 0.48. OSA risk is higher in general population than the medical students. Mean melatonin level were lower in both the groups when compared to the study conducted by Koch and OI, and low OSA risk in general population showed lower melatonin level, whereas medical students with low OSA risk showed higher melatonin level. A single study conducted by S. Jerlich et al. Reported that OSA patients showed melatonin level peak at 6 a.m. instead of the usual time 2 a.m. After CPAP therapy, melatonin reverted back to normal peak at 2 a.m., which opined that melatonin might be involved in the pathogenesis of obstructive sleep apnea. Coming to the conclusion, general population showed higher percentage of obesity than medical students who had more underweights, indicating that more sedentary lifestyle in general public due to prolonged movement restriction. High risk of OSA exists. In medical students, negative correlation of OSA risk and melatonin indicates poorer sleep quality and quantity. Poor sleep, stress, eating disorder, and altered BMI, which will increase the OSA risk. Today's take-home message is OSA often remain undiagnosed and untreated, which is prevalence of OSA is underestimated. Undiagnosed OSA increase the risk of mortality. For this reason, it will be necessary for OSA to screen and treat it timely. Limitations: less sample size, pre-COVID data were not available. Melatonin assay was time-consuming and expensive and has seasonal variation. Result of OSA is based on self-reported questionnaires without sleep recordings. These are my references. Thank you.